You close your eyes. You whisper the words. You ask. You plead. You wait. And nothing happens. Not even peace. Just silence. Just more questions. And you wonder, am I praying wrong? Pope Leo XIV gently answers, prayer is not a machine. It is not meant to work. It is meant to connect. Too many Catholics have unknowingly turned prayer into transaction. We say, if I say this novena, I'll get that grace. Or, if I fast 3 days, surely God will give me this. But the saints teach differently. Prayer is not about getting things from God. It's about being with God. The Church calls prayer a raising of the heart to God. Not a formula, not a deal, a lifting, a relationship. And like all relationships, it takes trust. It takes time. And yes, sometimes it feels dry. But dryness is not failure. Even Saint Teresa of Calcutta spent years in spiritual darkness. Yet she prayed every day. Why? Because her prayer was not about feelings. It was about faithfulness. Pope Leo tells of a young man who stopped praying after years of unanswered intentions. What's the point? He asked. The Pope replied, prayer is not about changing God's mind. It is about opening your soul. That changes everything. So what should you do when prayer feels useless? You pray anyway. You tell God the truth. You say, Lord, I don't feel you, but I want you. That is real prayer. That is soul-to-soul honesty. That is the kind of prayer heaven hears. Because it is not fake. It is not magic. It is trust. There is a subtle danger in how many Catholics pray. Not in the words, not in the posture, but in the heart. Pope Leo XIV warns, the most dangerous prayer is the one said without the soul. This happens when prayer becomes routine. When you say the words, but your mind is elsewhere. When your lips move, but your heart stays cold. The Catechism says, whether or not our prayer is heard depends not on the number of words, but on the fervor of our souls. Fervor. That inner flame. That childlike focus. That ache that says, God, I'm really here. Without it, even the most beautiful rosary becomes noise. Some saints say the enemy doesn't mind that you pray, as long as you never mean it. St. Augustine once said, remove from your prayer the desire for earthly things, and then you will truly be praying. It's not that you can't ask for healing, or peace, or help. But when prayer becomes a shopping list, the heart grows anxious, and anxiety chokes prayer. Pope Leo tells of a woman who prayed the same petition daily for 10 years, but always in a rush, always with fear. One day she finally said, Lord, I surrender this. I just want you. That day she felt peace for the first time in a decade. Her situation hadn't changed, but her soul had. Because real prayer does not start with asking. It starts with adoring. It starts with surrender. So pause today before your next prayer. Light a candle. Say nothing for 10 seconds. Then begin. Let it be real. Let it be from your soul. And God, the God of silence and secrets, will listen. There are times when we speak the right prayers, follow the proper forms, kneel, stand, cross ourselves, but our heart stays outside the room. Pope Leo XIV calls this the hollow echo, a prayer that looks alive but has no soul inside. The Church teaches us that prayer is not a ritual to be performed but a relationship to be lived. God desires not your performance. He desires your presence. Saint Teresa of Lisieux once said, for me, prayer is a surge of the heart, a cry of recognition and of love. A surge, not a script. So ask yourself, when you pray, are you there? Or just your voice? Do you talk to God or at Him? Lukewarm prayer isn't just ineffective. It leaves you empty, because your heart knows when it's been absent, and the soul suffers when it lives apart from its source. Pope Leo tells of a man who confessed he hadn't really felt his prayers in years. What did you do? He was asked. I stopped talking for a while, he said, and started listening. That's when things changed. Because prayer is not just speaking. It is surrendering the stage. It is resting in the gaze of God. So today, before your next prayer, pause. Take a breath. Place your hand on your heart and invite it to enter with you. Then begin. Even a single Our Father, if prayed with presence, becomes a bridge to heaven. We often say it, I said a quick prayer. In traffic, before a meal, on the phone, in passing. And yes, the Church does affirm brief prayers of the heart. Jesus himself honored the short cry of the publican, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner. But Pope Leo XIV cautions, the danger is not in short prayer. The danger is in shallow prayer. The soul cannot be nourished by crumbs forever. You need silence. You need space. You need time. The saints knew this. That's why they carved out hours, not minutes. Not because they were holy, but because they were hungry. And so often we wonder why we feel far from God, why peace doesn't stay, why our anxieties return. Could it be that our prayer has been reduced to pennies tossed toward heaven, rather than hearts poured out in trust? Pope Leo tells of a young woman who prayed before her exams, before work, before sleep, always quick prayers. But her heart felt empty. A spiritual director told her, "Give God 10 minutes with no agenda." She began sitting in silence each morning. Just silence. And after a week she wept, because she felt seen. The quick prayers remained, but they were no longer alone. They had been rooted in something deeper. So today make space. Not for eloquence, but for encounter. Give God one window, 5 minutes, of undistracted time. Watch what He does with that offering. Because prayer is not about getting through the day. It's about letting God into it. Sometimes we don't know what to say. Our heart is heavy. Our soul feels numb. And we wonder, should I even pray if I have no words? Pope Leo XIV answers with tender clarity, when words fail, silence speaks. And God hears it louder than thunder. The Church teaches that silence is not the absence of prayer. It is often the deepest form of it. St. John of the Cross spoke of silent love, where the soul communes with God without sound. St. Faustina wrote, "I have learned to speak to God simply by being with Him." You don't need eloquence to reach the heart of the Father. You just need to show up. Your presence is your prayer. When you sit before the tabernacle and say nothing, you are praying. When you close your eyes and breathe the holy name, you are praying. When you offer your tears without explanation, you are praying. The enemy wants you to believe silence is useless, that only loud, word-filled prayers matter. But Mary pondered in silence. Jesus rose early to be alone. The holiest moments in Scripture are often wrapped in stillness. Pope Leo shares a story of a father who had no idea how to pray. He sat in church, day after day, saying nothing. One day his young daughter asked, "Papa, why do you go if you don't talk?" He replied, "I go so God can talk to me." That's wisdom. That's faith. So don't fear the silence. Don't rush to fill it. Sit in it. Offer it. And know, in that silence healing begins. There's a hidden trap in modern spirituality, using prayer as a tool for self-soothing. We say, "I pray because it calms me. I pray when I'm stressed. I pray to find balance." These aren't bad desires, but they aren't the point. Pope Leo XIV warns, if you only pray to feel peace, you're worshiping your feelings, not your God. The Church teaches that prayer is first an act of adoration, not therapy. Yes, peace is a fruit of prayer, but it is not its purpose. The purpose is communion with God. And sometimes real communion doesn't feel peaceful. Sometimes it burns. Sometimes it convicts. Sometimes it leaves you trembling, not soothed. Saint Teresa of Avila once said, "God deliver us from sullen saints." She meant, don't chase feelings. Chase Him. Pope Leo tells of a man who stopped praying because it no longer felt good. The Pope said, when you stop feeling, that's when true prayer begins. Because now it's love, not emotion. Real prayer stays when comfort flees. Real prayer shows up even in the dry desert. Because real prayer isn't about feeling close to God, it's about being close, whether you feel it or not. So the next time prayer doesn't work the way you hoped, stay. Don't walk away. That's the moment your prayer becomes sacrificial. And God draws even closer. Not to make you feel better, but to make you holy. If you follow the saints, you'll notice something. They all reached a point where prayer hurt. Not because God is cruel, but because love, real love, purifies. Pope Leo XIV says, at some point, prayer leads you to the cross. And there you must decide, do I want comfort or do I want Christ? You see, the deeper you go in prayer, the more you face yourself. Your wounds, your sins, your attachments. And that's when many walk away. Because we wanted prayer to fix our day, not remake our soul. But the Church teaches, true prayer is transformative. It doesn't leave you as you are. It calls you into fire. Not to burn you, but to burn away what's false. Saint Ignatius of Loyola prayed, "Take, Lord, receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my entire will." That's not relaxation. That's surrender. Prayer leads to this. And yes, it's hard, but it's also healing. Pope Leo tells of a woman who said, "Every time I pray, I remember my failures." He answered, "Then you are praying well, because God is showing you where He wants to enter." Don't fear what prayer reveals. Let it come. Let it hurt a little. Let the cross appear. Because when it does, you're not doing something wrong. You're finally drawing close enough to be changed. After all the silence, After all the dryness, after all the wandering thoughts and unspoken tears, there is one prayer that always works, not because it changes God, but because it changes you. It is this: Jesus, I trust in you. That's it. Pope Leo XIV says, all true prayer leads to trust, and trust is the gate of heaven. When you pray and don't hear anything, trust. When you ask and don't receive, trust. When you feel cold, unworthy, broken, trust. That is the highest prayer, because it places everything in His hands. The Catechism tells us that trust is the filial boldness of prayer, the confidence of a child who dares to believe the Father sees, hears, and acts. Saint Faustina built her whole life on this one sentence, and through it, God poured oceans of grace. You don't need eloquence. You don't need constant peace. You need one decision: I will trust Him even here, even in this confusion, even in this silence, even when nothing seems to happen, because something is happening in you, in heaven, in His plan. So let your prayer become a life of trust. Say it now out loud: Jesus, I trust in you. That's not a weak prayer. That's not a fallback. That's everything.